The diplomatic ship moved slowly through the dark space between stars. It was called the, which meant sky in the old Korean language. The ship carried 23 humans. Some were diplomats. Some were crew members. All of them believed they were safe. They were wrong. The warship came out of nowhere. One moment, the space around them was empty. The next moment, a massive ship appeared like a monster rising from deep water. It was black and covered with sharp angles. Its weapons glowed with a sickly green light. Captain tried to run. He ordered full speed toward the nearest human outpost, but the ship was faster, much faster. Within minutes, it had caught and locked onto it with powerful cables. The soldiers came through the airlock like a flood of nightmares. They were tall creatures, almost 3 meters high. Their bodies were covered in hard shells like insects. Their eyes were black and shiny, reflecting everything around them. Each one carried a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. The humans fought. Of course they fought, but they had no real weapons. They were diplomats, not soldiers. The security team had only simple guns that bounced harmlessly off the armor. In less than 10 minutes it was over. 5 humans were dead. The rest were captured. Among the captured was a young woman named. She was small, barely reaching the chest of most soldiers. Her face was soft and round, with eyes that seemed too large for her head. She wore the plain uniform of a medical aide. No rank symbols, no decorations, nothing special at all. The commander was called. He stood in the middle of the captured humans, studying them with his compound eyes. His mandibles clicked together as he thought. This was how his species showed deep consideration. "Separate them," ordered. His voice was harsh and scratchy, like metal scraping against stone. "Officers in the interrogation cells. The weak ones in the holding area. They might be useful later." A soldier grabbed by the arm. His grip was painful, but she did not cry out. She only lowered her head and let herself be dragged away. The holding cell was small and cold. Metal walls surrounded a metal floor. A single light burned overhead, too bright and too white. There was no furniture except for a thin mat in the corner. Was not alone. 3 other humans were pushed into the cell with her. The first was Ambassador. He was an old man with white hair and wrinkled hands. He had spent 40 years building peace between species. Now his hands shook as he sat against the wall. The second she was young, barely 20 years old. Her job had been to manage communications on the ship. This was supposed to be her first real mission. Her eyes were red from crying. The third he was a security officer, one of the few who had survived the fight. But he had not escaped without injury. A deep cut ran across his ribs and blood soaked through his uniform. As soon as the cell door closed, moved to side. She knelt beside him and gently pulled his hand away from the wound. "Let me see," she said. Her voice was quiet and soft. Looked at her with pain-filled eyes. "It's bad, isn't it?" Did not answer directly. Instead, she tore a strip of cloth from the bottom of her uniform. "I need to stop the bleeding. This will hurt." She pressed the cloth against his wound, groaned but did not scream. He was strong, respected that. "We're going to die here," whispered. She was sitting in the corner, hugging her knees to her chest. "I heard them talking. They're going to kill the captain in front of cameras. They want everyone to see." Ambassador moved to sit beside her. He put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We must not lose hope. The human fleet will come looking for us. They will not abandon their people." "The fleet is 3 days away," said through clenched teeth. "We don't have 3 days." Silence fell over the cell. It was the silence of people who had accepted their fate. But was not silent inside her mind. As she tended to his wound, her eyes moved around the cell. She looked at everything, the lock on the door, the way the light was attached to the ceiling, the small gap where 2 wall panels did not quite meet, the window that showed the corridor outside. Through that window, she watched the guards walk past. She counted the seconds between each patrol. These were not the observations of a scared medical aide. These were the observations of something else entirely. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed. That was the point. "You have gentle hands," said, watching her work on. "You must be a good healer." Looked up at him with soft eyes. "My mother was a doctor. I learned from her." It was true. Her mother had been a doctor. What did not say was everything else she had learned. The things that had nothing to do with healing. The things that only brought death. "Try to rest," she told. "Your body needs to fight the injury." He nodded weakly and closed his eyes. Sat back against the wall. To anyone watching, she looked like a frightened young woman trying to be brave. Her shoulders were hunched. Her hands were folded in her lap. She seemed to be praying. But she was not praying, she was planning. And somewhere deep in her eyes, hidden beneath layers of fear and softness, something cold and patient was waiting for its moment to strike. 3 days passed inside the prison cell. 3 days of cold metal walls and harsh white light. 3 days of fear and waiting. They operated on a strict schedule. Learned this without appearing to pay attention. She would sit quietly in her corner, eyes downcast, looking like nothing more than a scared woman. But behind those soft eyes, her mind was working like a machine. Guards changed every 6 hours. She counted the footsteps as they walked past the window. Always 2 guards at a time, always walking at the same speed. The valued order above everything else. Food came twice a day. It was not really food. It was a thick paste that tasted like nothing, but it kept them alive, and that was enough for now. The lights dimmed every 12 hours. This was when the rested. Their home planet had long nights, and they had carried this habit with them into space. During these dark hours, the ship became quieter. Fewer guards walked the corridors. Fewer eyes watched the prisoners. Remembered all of this. She built a map inside her mind, every sound, every pattern, every weakness. On the second day, they dragged Captain past their cell. Saw him through the small window. His face was covered in blood. One of his eyes was swollen shut. His uniform was torn and dirty. 2 guards held him up because he could no longer walk on his own. Ambassador pressed his face against the window. He called out. The captain turned his head. For just a moment his one good eye met's gaze. He shook his head slowly. It was a warning, a message. Do not fight. Do not give them a reason to hurt you. Then the guards dragged him away, and he was gone. Started crying again. She had been crying on and off for 3 days. Her eyes were permanently red now. Her voice was hoarse from sobbing. "They're going to kill him," she said. "They're going to kill all of us." "We don't know that," said, but his voice was weak. He did not believe his own words. In the corner's condition was getting worse. His wound had become infected. Despite careful work, the alien environment was too harsh. He needed real medicine, real treatment. Without it, he would die within days. Changed his bandages 3 times a day. She had somehow found more cloth for this purpose. Nobody asked where it came from. They were too tired and scared to ask questions. "You're very good at this," said, watching her work. He had been watching her more closely lately. There was something in his old eyes, something curious. "You seem so calm." Did not look up from swooned. Panic does not help. Someone has to stay calm. "That is true, but most people cannot control their fear so well." He paused, "especially in a situation like this." For a moment, his hands stopped moving. Then she continued her work as if nothing had happened. "I am afraid," she said softly. "I am just too tired to show it." Nodded slowly, but his eyes remained curious. On the 3rd night, came to visit them. The commander was even more terrifying up close. His body was covered in dark armor that looked like it had grown from his own skin. His eyes were like pools of black oil. When he moved, his joints made clicking sounds that echoed in the small cell. He studied each prisoner in turn. His gaze passed over and without interest. He looked at for a longer moment, perhaps calculating how much longer the wounded man would survive. Then his eyes found. She had pressed herself against the wall. Her body was trembling. Her eyes were wide and wet with tears that had not yet fallen. She looked exactly like what she appeared to be, a small, helpless woman facing a monster. "This one tends the wounded?" asked. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. "She is a medical aide," answered carefully. "She has been helping our injured man." Stepped closer, too. She flinched away from him, making herself even smaller against the wall. "Humans confuse me," the commander said. "You send your weak to care for your wounded. You talk when you should fight. You are like small animals pretending to be something more." "Please," whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "We just want to live. Please let us go home." Laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. "Tomorrow we reach the broadcast station," he said. "Your captain will die in front of the whole galaxy. Everyone will see what happens when humans challenge the Empire." He turned and walked out of the cell. The door slammed shut behind him. His crying became louder, closed his eyes and said a silent prayer, drifted in and out of consciousness, unaware of what was happening around him. Remained pressed against the wall for several minutes. She looked broken, defeated, empty. But when she finally moved to check on, her fingers found the hidden seam in her sleeve. The tiny blade was still there. The microcomputer sewn into her collar was still working. The neural toxin capsules hidden in her boots were still intact. Tomorrow they would reach the broadcast station. Tomorrow would stop pretending. The broadcast station hung in space like a metal spider. It was enormous. Hundreds of ships surrounded it, all of them bearing the marks of the Empire. Cameras from dozens of different species were already pointed at the main chamber. Today, the whole galaxy would watch a human die. The prisoners were brought up from the cells in chains, walked with the others, her head bowed, her steps small and uncertain. Guards surrounded them on all sides. Escape seemed impossible. The main chamber was vast and cold. Strange symbols covered the walls. In the center stood a raised platform where Captain knelt in chains. His face was calm, but his eyes showed fear. He knew what was coming. Behind him, the other captured officers were forced to kneel in a row. They would be made to watch their captain die. Then they would be killed one by one. This was the way. Stood at the front of the platform. He held a ceremonial blade that gleamed under the harsh lights. The blade was old. It had killed many enemies of the Empire. Today it would add a human captain to that list. "Bring the weak ones forward," commanded. "Let them see their leader fall." Guards pushed and the barely conscious to the front of the crowd. They were meant to be witnesses, examples of human weakness. Cameras focused on the platform. Millions of beings across the galaxy were watching. This was exactly what wanted. Fear was a weapon, and he was about to use it. "Today," announced, his voice booming through speakers, "the galaxy will learn an important lesson. Humans are not to be feared. They are soft. They are weak. They break easily." He raised the ceremonial blade above his neck. "And today, they will learn their place." The lights went out. Not just dimmed, completely out. Every light in the station died at once. Every screen went black. Every camera stopped recording. For 3 seconds, the entire broadcast station was plunged into total darkness. They could still see. Their eyes were made for low light, but the sudden blackness created confusion. Guards turned to look at each other. Officers shouted questions. His blade stopped in mid-swing. In those 3 seconds, moved. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 days. Every observation, every counted footstep, every memorized pattern had led to this exact instant. Her chains fell away. They had never really been locked. She had picked them hours ago with a wire hidden in her hair. The first guard died before he knew she was there. Her small blade found the gap between his armor plates and slid into his nerve cluster. He fell without a sound. The second guard turned toward the noise, was already moving. Her hand shot out and crushed his throat with a strike that seemed impossible from someone her size. He made a gurgling sound and collapsed. The third and fourth guards were standing together. She killed them both in a single motion, spinning between them with her blade, cutting through flesh and armor like they were made of paper. The emergency lights came on. Red light flooded the chamber. Everything was suddenly visible again. And in the center of the chaos stood. She held his own ceremonial blade against his throat. The commander was frozen in place. His compound eyes were wide with something that looked like shock. Was covered in blood. It was not her blood. Her soft eyes were gone. In their place was something cold and empty and absolutely terrifying. "Nobody move," she said. Her voice was different now. There was no fear in it, no softness. It was flat and calm, like the voice of someone reading numbers from a page, the voice of someone who had killed before and would kill again without hesitation. The guards raised their weapons. There were hundreds of them, but none of them fired. Their commander was in danger. If they shot, would die too. Captain stared up at her from his knees. Blood dripped down his face, but he seemed to have forgotten his own pain. Who are you?" he whispered. Did not take her eyes off the guards. "My name is Operative Sigma 7, Korean Special Intelligence Division." She pressed the blade harder against throat. A thin line of blood appeared on his armor. "I was placed on your ship 18 months ago. My mission was to observe, gather information, and wait." "Wait for what?" asked. His voice was shaking. "For a situation that required intervention." His lips curved into something that might have been a smile. It was not a kind smile. "This is that situation." Tried to speak. His mandibles clicked frantically. You are just a medical aid," the records showed. The records showed what I wanted them to show. Pulled him backward, using his body as a shield. "Now we are going to walk out of here, all of us, and you are going to make sure your soldiers let us pass." She looked at the guards surrounding her. Hundreds of warriors, each one capable of tearing a human apart with their bare claws. Was not afraid. "Tell them to clear a path," she said too, "or I will show you exactly how many different ways I know how to kill a commander." Gave the order. The corridor stretched before them like a long metal throat. Red emergency lights painted everything in the color of blood. Warriors lined both sides, their weapons raised but not firing. Their black eyes followed every step the humans took. Walked backward, never taking her blade from his throat. The commander moved stiffly, his body rigid with fear and rage. Behind them, Captain and the other officers shuffled forward in their chains, helped support who could barely walk, stayed close to them, her eyes wide but no longer crying. They were moving toward the docking bay, knew exactly where it was. She had memorized the station's layout from stolen data files 3 days ago. "This is impossible," hissed. "You cannot escape. There are 300 warriors on this station. You are one small human." "I am aware of the numbers," replied. Her voice remained flat and calm. "Your warriors will not fire because they cannot risk hitting you. Your political enemies would celebrate your death. The power struggle would tear your fleet apart. You are too important to lose." His mandibles clicked angrily. She was right and he hated her for it. A squad of 12 soldiers blocked the corridor ahead. Their armor was heavier than the others. Elite guards. They stood in formation, weapons humming with deadly energy. "Stopped walking." "Tell them to move," she said. "And if I refuse," challenged, "perhaps I am willing to die for the honor of the Empire." Was silent for a moment, then she leaned close to his ear. "Do you know what humans used to do before we traveled to the stars?" she asked softly. "We hunted, not like your species with overwhelming force. We hunted differently. We would chase an animal for days, weeks sometimes. We never stopped. We never got tired. We just kept following until the animal could not run anymore." She pressed the blade slightly harder. I have been hunting you for 3 days, watching your patterns, learning your weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment." Her breath was warm against his armor. "Do you really think I did not prepare for this exact situation?" Before could answer, raised her other hand. She was holding a small device. It looked like a simple metal cylinder, no bigger than her finger. "This is a dead man's switch," she explained calmly. "If my thumb releases this button, every explosive I planted during the past 3 days will activate. The reactor room, the weapons storage, the life support center." She paused. "I am not bluffing. I am not negotiating. I am simply telling you what will happen if you do not order your soldiers to stand down." The elite squad did not move, stared at the device in her hand. His compound eyes reflected the red emergency lights. "You would die too," he said. "Yes," agreed. "But my mission would be complete. Your fleet would lose its flagship station. Your broadcast would be destroyed, and the galaxy would see that one human woman brought the Empire to its knees." Silence filled the corridor. The elite soldiers looked at their commander, waiting for orders. Their weapons remained raised, but uncertainty flickered in their movements. "Made a decision. Let them pass," he commanded. The squad stepped aside. The walk continued. More corridors, more watching soldiers, more tension that hung in the air like smoke, never relaxed. Her eyes moved constantly, tracking every threat, calculating every angle. "How did you plant explosives?" asked quietly. He was walking behind her now, still in chains but able to move on his own. "You were in the cell the whole time." "I was not always in the cell," replied. "The guards took me out twice for what they called health assessments. They wanted to make sure the prisoners were alive enough to be useful." Her lips curved slightly. "They did not search me carefully. They saw a small, frightened woman. They never thought to look for the things hidden in my uniform." They reached the docking bay. A shuttle sat waiting on the launch pad. It was a small ship, designed for short trips between the station and nearby vessels. The pilot was inside, trying frantically to seal the hatch. Through something small, it attached to the shuttle's hull with a magnetic click. A blue light pulsed once. The pilot inside the shuttle suddenly convulsed and fell forward. He did not get up. "Neural disruptor," explained. "Designed specifically for biology. He will wake up in a few hours with a headache but no permanent damage." She pushed toward the shuttle door. "Get inside," she told the other prisoners, quickly. Helped up the ramp, followed, then the other officers, stopped at the entrance and turned back. "What about the commander?" he asked. Was still holding the blade to his throat. Her thumb remained on the dead man's switch. "He stays here," she said. "I need to make sure we are not followed." She looked directly into his compound eyes. "I uploaded a virus to your communication systems during the blackout. You will not be able to send messages for the next 4 hours. By then, we will be in human space." She paused. "When your superiors ask what happened here, you will tell them the truth. You will tell them that a single human woman defeated 300 warriors without firing a single shot." She released him with a sudden shove. He stumbled forward, almost falling. "And then," continued, backing toward the shuttle, "you will recommend that the Empire never threatens human space again." The shuttle door closed behind her. The engines roared to life, and as the small ship rose from the docking bay, finally allowed herself to sit down. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion. 3 days of acting, 3 days of hiding everything she was. Now it was over. Now she could rest. The Korean Naval Patrol found them 6 hours later. By then, the stolen shuttle was running low on fuel and drifting through empty space. But they were alive. All 23 survivors were alive. Medical teams rushed aboard as soon as the shuttle docked with the rescue ship. Was taken directly to surgery. His infection had spread, but the doctors said he would survive. Was treated for shock and dehydration. Ambassador refused treatment until everyone else had been seen first. Captain answered questions from military intelligence for hours. He told them everything he could remember: the capture, the prison cells, the broadcast station, and "She was on my crew for 18 months, he said, his voice tired but amazed. "I thought she was shy, quiet. I barely noticed her during staff meetings, and the whole time she was." He did not finish the sentence. He did not have words for what was. The incident was classified at the highest level. No public announcements, no news reports. Officially, the diplomatic ship was delayed due to technical problems. Officially, nothing happened. But unofficially, everything changed. Ships began giving wider paths to human vessels. Their warriors stopped making jokes about weak humans. In the dark corners of alien space stations, stories spread about the small woman who had walked through an army. The Empire never acknowledged what happened on the broadcast station. Their pride would not allow it, but their behavior told the truth better than any words. 2 weeks after the rescue, visited in the military hospital. She looked different now. Her hair was longer. Her clothes were soft and colorful instead of. She could have been any young woman visiting a sick friend. Nothing about her suggested danger. Was sitting up in bed when she entered. His wound was healing well. The doctors said he would return to active duty within a month. "You came," he said. "I wanted to make sure you were recovering." Stood near the foot of his bed. She did not sit down. "The doctors say you are doing well." "Thanks to you." He studied her face. "You kept me alive in that cell. You changed my bandages. You stayed calm when everyone else was falling apart." "It was necessary for my cover," said simply. "Was it?" Eyes were sharp despite his weakened condition. "Or did you actually care?" Was silent for a long moment. "You asked me that question in the cell," she finally said. "You asked if I was really who I appeared to be. And you never answered." "Because the answer is complicated." She moved to stand by the window. Outside, the city of Seoul stretched toward the mountains. It was a beautiful day, normal, peaceful. "I am trained to become whoever I need to be, a medical aide, a scared woman, a friend. These are masks I wear for my missions." So none of it was real. Turned to face him. For just a moment, something warm flickered in her usually cold eyes. "The masks are real," she said quietly. "When I was caring for your wound, I genuinely wanted you to live. When I listened to stories about his, I genuinely enjoyed them. When I let cry on my shoulder, I genuinely wanted to comfort her." She paused. "I am many things at once. That is what makes me good at my job. I do not pretend to have feelings. I allow myself to actually feel them. The difference is that my feelings never control my actions." Considered this. That sounds lonely. Sometimes it is. She walked toward the door. Her visit was ending. Soon she would disappear into whatever organization had created her. A new mission, a new identity, a new mask. But she stopped at the door and turned back one more time. "The galaxy looks at humans and sees diplomats," she said. "They see traders and scientists. They see us building things and talking about peace, and they think that is all we are." Her eyes met his. "They forget that we also created soldiers, spies, weapons that look like ordinary people. They forget that the same species that builds hospitals also builds armies." Her voice was soft but carried a weight that filled the room. "And sometimes, the most dangerous person is the one nobody notices." She opened the door. "Take care of yourself. I hope we do not meet again. Because if we do, it will probably mean something has gone very wrong." Then she was gone. Never saw her again, but he thought about her often. When he recovered and returned to duty, he requested transfer to a diplomatic vessel. He eventually became a captain himself. And whenever alien species dismissed humans as soft or harmless, he would think of the small woman with the gentle hands and the cold eyes, the medical aide who carried death in her sleeve. Years later, During a tense negotiation with a hostile species, the alien ambassador made a mocking comment about human weakness. Just smiled. "You might be right," he said politely, "but then again, you never know who might be watching." The ambassador looked confused, but somewhere in the back of his alien mind, a tiny seed of doubt was planted. And somewhere out in the galaxy was still watching, still waiting, still wearing her masks. Because humanity had learned long ago that the greatest predators were not the ones who roared the loudest. They were the ones who stayed quiet until it was time to strike.